Music is still critically important for brain development, emotional intelligence, creative intelligence. Steve Jobs played an instrument. Great leaders, Albert Einstein played the violin. So we really sell and talk about the message to the parents, administrators, and to the community that music is critical, but global styles it cannot be a narrow training. You have to be able to fiddle a little bit. I don't fiddle, I play classical music. Well, that narrows your opportunity.
My guest today is recording artist, performer, inventor, Emmy Award-winning composer, and music education advocate Mark Wood. Mark rose to fame as original string master of the internationally acclaimed Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He's since gone on to tour and perform with Billy Joel, Paul McCartney, Celine Dion, Steven Tyler, and many others. He turned the string establishment on its head in the early 1970s with his invention of the first solid-body electric violin. His company, Wood Violins, has since become the premier manufacturer of electric violins, and cellos worldwide, and he holds the patent for the first ever self-supporting violin. During the interview, we talked about innovation in string instrument design, his Trans-Siberian Orchestra experience, inspiring young musicians with his Electrify Your Symphony program, entrepreneurship in music, and much more. I spoke with Mark live from his home studio. Okay, so you just picked up your violin, your electric violin that comes from the company, your company. Tell me how that got started, because that just seems so unique. And it seems like the world is embracing it so much, embracing the various models that you've made.
Yes, and thank you, Bobby, for inviting me. I'm a big fan of yours. And to be able to share with you and your listeners and viewers the historical moment that I'm still alive, because the most famous violin maker lived 400 years ago, named Stradivarius. And I don't think you might or may not be able to name any other violin maker except Stradivarius, right?
Right.
When you have this instrument selling for $8 million, it's not necessarily the best violin in the world, but it's a Stradivarius. So unfortunately, in about 400 years, I'm going to have to wait for that moment of my time to have that kind of recognition. But and I really love sharing about the historical significance of this moment. And I want to share with you, the traditional violin is this, right?
Yeah.
Not white, though. This, by the way, we built for the Dixie Chicks, and they signed it right here. But traditionally, the violin and bowed instruments have been with us for over 500 years, right? The exact same F holes, the body shape, all has not changed in 500 years. And before guitar, violin was the choice of Renaissance music and also the tradition from Beethoven and orchestras. How many oboe players and clarinet players are in an orchestra? 2. How many strings? 40. So this is the magic wand. It's called a bow. And it's amazing that we have historically had this great history of this, the traditional sense of all types of very traditional sensibility of only classical music. There was no jazz in Bach's time. And then all of a sudden, in about 100 years ago, when the blues came on, the bowed instrument was very much a part of the blues music, but they were untrained. So they played their hand position, their technique was all weird and a little out of tune, a little squeaky and scratchy, but it gave it personality. So we fast forward to the last 50 years of me going to Juilliard on a full scholarship, never graduated in high school. And my background is my mom was a concert pianist. My father is a famous artist, and she had 4 boys, and she was determined to have a string quartet. She did not like rock at all. We're talking the 60s. You remember that right. Time. Yeah. Your parents and my parents, maybe I'm wrong, but that generation did not like Led Zeppelin or Ozzy Osbourne. That was the devil's music, right? Of course, I'm growing up in the 60s and 70s, and I fall in love with Black Sabbath and Zeppelin and all the great jazz stuff and fusion stuff. And my teachers, my brothers, my parents, you are not to listen to that music. That is not music, the cliche. And I'm a viola player by training, and I go to Juilliard working with the best of the best. I was mentored. In fact, one of the greatest experiences of my life as a 15-year-old was mentored by Leonard Bernstein. So here's a musician who does jazz, does the greatest musicals in the world, West Side Story, and conducts Stravinsky and Mahler. So I said, this is the guy I want to hang out with. And he shared with me something that I share with all of my lectures and concerts with. He shared with me, Mark, you know what, on my tax returns under occupation, what do you think I put? He was the greatest pianist around, the greatest conductor, the greatest composer. You know what he put? Musician. And I was like, that's what I want to be. I don't want to be a viola player, keyboard player. I want to be a musician. And I figured out that that was really the key. So after a good year or so at Juilliard with the greatest musicians, conductors, teachers, and my teacher would mark, where were you last night? And if you remember a club in New York called CBGB's.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Where I saw the Police, Talking Heads, the Sex Pistols, Patti Smith, the Ramones at CBGB's. This is not Juilliard material. And my ears were blown out. I would go next day to orchestra, and my teacher, where were you last night? I was like, I was listening to, what? You're listening to that horrible music, Mark. It will ruin your career. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but I really love that. But I also love Stravinsky, Mahler, Beethoven, Bartok. I love all music. And that's the definition of a musician. And that was that turning point where I left Juilliard. And everyone, my mother, my relatives, my brothers, the teachers were, Mark, it's never been done. What are you going to do with your life? And I said, I want to be a rock violin. What? A rock violin player? There's no such thing. Except maybe Jean-Luc Ponty and Sugarcane Harris, who I adored. But they didn't know those people. There were three great electric violin players. How many electric guitar players in the 60s and 70s were there?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Thousands. And I would see Jimmy Page and Hendrix and Van Halen. I was like, and they were like, Mark, just play guitar. I said, I am not playing guitar because guitars do not have this horsehair on a bow. So that was really the changing point.
The traditional instrument, though, didn't fit where you were going.
Jean-Luc Ponty and all the great electric players were playing a painted acoustic violin, right? And under the chin, which gets very awkward and very stiff and tense. And when I would see Jimmy Page and Hendrix, man, he was burning his guitar. I was like, this guy has a relationship with this instrument that we don't see in classical string playing. Very serious. You never see these violin players smile. Everything's really serious. And then I would go see the Allman Brothers and go see Clapton. And these guys were just so expressive physically. So I was like, okay, I got to get rid of this thing called the chin rest and the shoulder pad, which locks your jaw like this. And it was just, I had to change it. So I started to build, and my father's side were woodworkers, which is really cool because they made religious furniture for temples and churches. And the most famous client, which is now on display at the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. this summer, was Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart came to my father's and uncle's studios in 1935 in Port Washington, Long Island, which is where I grew up before I was born. And they built this chest for her and furniture specifically for her world trip. And unfortunately, she disappeared with it. It's at the Smithsonian Institute, and this summer they just polished it up and it's on display. So I grew up with a wood shop. When I left Juilliard, my mother was like, what are you going to do with your life? All of my sons, my brothers, are classical musicians, successful, brilliant musicians. Me, I wanted to be, Jimi Hendrix or Van Halen. And I ended up living at my father's art studio. And when the workmen left at night, I would go into the shop. I had no clue how to build, no sense of luthier. I had no clue. So I put together the weirdest violins, which are hanging. I'll show you a couple of them. And I was like, I got to figure out how to hold this instrument without this, a self-supporting. So one of the first ones I built, I'll grab it over here, was my mother freaked out when she saw this, and she was going to disown me. She was very religious. I was like, Mom, check this out. So it's a violin with a hand, right? Carved exactly to my hand. And I was like, how am I going to put the string? Oh, I know. I'll put a knife through the arm, and then the strap went around my neck like this, and it held itself up. I was like, oh my God. So every time, so I joined a rock band, and every gig, once a week, I would premiere a new electric violin. I had a violin with a barrel at the end of it where I'd shoot bottle rockets out of the violin over the audience's heads. And that changed everything. In classical concerts, very polite applause. In a rock club, they're screaming. And I felt this energy from the audience I've never felt. I was like, this is where I need to be, because these people have never seen anything like what I was doing. And it was a great, great start for me as a musician to combine my ability to build. I've got a set of glow instruments, and my final instrument is my Viper, which is this, which is a 7-string. It's got the entire orchestra, bass, cello, viola, violin. If you let me know when you're ready to, I can play a little for you.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, this is an instrument that a lot of electric players are playing in the world. And I'll share with you what that feels like for me to go out. And I have a music camp in the summer where we have 2 rock orchestras, and we have 150 kids show up playing my instrument.
Wow.
How mind-blowing.
Yeah,
I look
no
at
kidding.
it and I said, wow. So the traditional violin has 4 strings. And I put a viola string on, a cello, and bass. So I was like, oh, I got the entire orchestra. I don't have to play the cello like this. I have on my... But then with my pedal board... And I was like, oh, I can play Hendrix. And then I discovered the real secret weapon called distortion. And with the bow, I'm able to get that sustain that guitar players always are trying to get. And I was like, oh, I got a bow. You guys don't have the bow part. So I'm able to do. I can be so expressive because of the bow. So that's a little demonstration.
Wow, very cool. Thank you. I'm curious about the amplification that you used. What you're feeding it is different than a guitar. So I would imagine that your needs would be different.
Very much so. Again, remember, guitars have a magnetic pickup. Very different technology. The magnet picks up the movement of the string this way for a guitar. You hit it, the string goes this way. The bow hits the string, and it doesn't move at all, except it vibrates very quickly. So the magnetic pickup does not work on a bowed instrument. So we use something called transducers, and the pickup that's on my 7-string is built by a great, great luthier, Rich Barbera, which have piezos under each string. So it's critical that the pickup is the best possible, and it's also wood on wood. There's no metal that's interacting with my pickups. It's all wood because the vibration of the bridge and the body together resonates to a rich tone. As you can hear it when I play cleanly, that's actually how the instrument sounds. And then I discovered distortion, and I was like, oh, this is what those guitar players have been talking about. And I've got a secret weapon. I don't know if you remember, I bought, because they're not made anymore, but at the NAMM show, if you know the NAMM show, right?
Sure, yeah.
I would go every year for 25 years with my booth and my instruments. And Mr. Zoom, if you remember Zoom.
Yeah.
And this, in fact, Bobby, this is the first time I've ever shared it with any press. This is the secret weapon. It's noisy, it's analog, it's horrible sounding with a guitar plugged in. And they don't build them anymore, of course, because I met Mr. Zoom from Japan. He came to the NAMM show. They said, man, your Zoom Pro is awesome. Check it out. He was blown away. And he asked me, Mark, so how many will we sell to violin players? One, me. I said, well, I can't run a business like that. I don't know if you remember Zoom back then.
Yeah.
But it didn't work as well with guitar, but man, it's awesome. So I buy most of them off the internet, so no one has the same sound that I do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You're well known for your work with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Mm.
Were you a founder of that?
I was part of the original crew, and briefly, the incredible story of this incredible opportunity they have on Long Island, Bobby. I don't know if you're familiar with Long Island or the area. But growing up in New York in the 60s and 70s, the rock scene was incredible. Steve Vai and Joe Satriani lived around the corner from me as I'm growing up. And I would go over to Steve Vai's house. I'm 18 years old and I have a cassette. I said, Steve, check this out. Somehow he was with Zappa at the time, and I hooked up with him. And the Lion scene was just incredible. Twisted Sister, Billy Joel. I mean, it was the epicenter for about 5 or 6 years. So I would go out and bump into these people, and it was really, really influential. And that was the turning point of being around those people. And finding that kind of a scene for me was critical. I don't know if you know Al Petrelli, great guitar player, played with Alice Cooper, played with Megadeth, actually. One of my dearest friends, and truly the guitar sound of Trans-Siberian Orchestra is Al. Al calls me up one day, Mark, we're putting together a rock orchestra. Awesome. And we want you to be the orchestra because we're just a greasy rock band from Long Island, right? We don't know anything. We're going to do Beethoven, Mozart, and we're going to do Christmas music, heavy metal. And I was like, there's no way anyone's going to want to be interested in that. But I am totally into it. So from day one, we put together a core group with me and the rock band who originally were a band called Sabotage, which was a metal progressive band that morphed into this. Their producer was producing the record, and the one song that they presented was Carol of the Bells, if you know that one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? Simple, traditional instrumental, and a minor key Christmas song. How rare is that? You know, it's not sad, but it's energetic. So that was the first song, and Sabotage was going to record that song, and Sabotage thought, oh, we can't put out a Christmas song. The producer had a genius idea. Let's form another band with a cool name called Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and we'll do Christmas music, heavy metal. And we got Mark, we got Al, we got the whole rhythm section. We did the first record, and you know something, and I don't mind sharing this with you because this is almost 30 years ago. Our first gig, I was so embarrassed. I didn't tell anybody about it. It's like, I've played Carnegie Hall. I've played Lincoln Center. I've worked with Leonard Bernstein. What's the first gig? It was QVC. And I learned very quickly that if you can get Middle America as fans, oh, you're set for life. And that catapulted us. So that was the beginning of it.
It's huge. That's a huge entity, especially during the holidays. It's a holiday tradition now.
But January 1st, nobody wants to listen to us. Nobody wants to listen to our music. I mean, you can see my gold and platinum records. We sold over 10 million records. I mean, it's just astounding and great and dear friends of mine for life. And they're still around doing They're actually 2 to 3 bands are touring. I just love being part of that for 15 years.
Tell me about Electrify Your Symphony.
While we're touring with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and you can imagine my experience at Juilliard and the classical world, classrooms, you're living in a box. You're not learning really, in my opinion, about music as a whole. You're playing classical, Bach and Mozart. I had no interest in doing anything educational with strings. We're playing the Trans-Siberian Orchestra performed at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame about 28 years ago, right? And I was speaking and we did a lecture for schools. A teacher after that came up to me, Mark, can you put together a Trans-Siberian Orchestra at our school? I was like, I guess so. I'm not sure if I would like that. And we want you to build, we're going to commission you to build 8 electric instruments for us. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So it's not going to be traditional. And the teacher was like, oh, no, we want a rock orchestra. And that was the first time that I envisioned the future. And I was like, okay, so they flew me out once a month to Cleveland and working with the students once a month, testing instruments out, having the students give me feedback. Mark, can you move the string a little this way? Move the bridge this way. I'd bring it back to my shop with my luthiers, and we built a custom rock orchestra. And I fell in love with the environment of working with young people who have fresh ideas, who are inspiring, and of course, a teacher who will allow them to play non-classical music. So that was 28 years ago. And now we've connected with we calculate over 1 million students in the last 28 years. We do 100 and 150 a year. We have 5 artist mentors. We do choir, band, and orchestra. And we bring our instruments. We raffle off my electric instruments where 100% of the proceeds go to help support the music programs. 100% of the ticket sales go into the music program. So it's a very important moment for us as musicians. And I wish every musician would see the responsibility that we have to get kids into music, because without music in public schools, where are they going to learn to play?
I'm pretty amazed that you actually found, and well, not back then, 25 years ago, yes, there was still music in schools, and there's less now. So how does that work? Is this like independently put together then, or is this really the schools that do it?
Well, Bobby, what we have done, you're looking at somebody who runs 4 companies. I have 12 employees who build my violins in my office, agents, lawyers, managers. We manage everything. We set up these programs for these teachers in these schools where we do everything. We prepare the music. We prepare the T-shirts. We prepare the publicity. We sell out concerts of 1,000 to 2,000 people sold out, where the parents, the community come and watch their kid. And Bobby, I can't tell you the most powerful moment of the entire experience for me is when a parent comes up to me and says, my kid was about to quit. And after working with you, Mark, he wants to play or she wants to play for the rest of their lives. Bingo. So it's not that specific moment. It's creating a movement. So my camp, my 4th business next to my foundation, every summer we have 150 to 200 string players, singers, guitar players from around the world who fly. And we have 3 rock orchestras, and we bring this movement together. And I encourage every one of these kids, and we've been doing it. We're on our 17th year. So the first kids who came in 2010, 2009, right?
Yeah.
They're now in their 30s, and they still come to camp helping up the young ones. And we've had 3 marriages from my camp where they meet their mate at my camp. So we're dating agency also.
When they come to the camp, are they coming with the mindset of being electric, playing electrically?
There is the clinics we have, the workshops we have it with my faculty who are all electric players. It's really interesting since classical pedagogy has been with us for 500 years. They don't need another camp to teach classical music. So it's an opportunity for me to test drive ideas, my compositions, and movement. They're all standing up and they move to the music. If you go to MWROC, Markwood Rock Orchestra Camp.com, you'll see videos of a rock orchestra who are standing up, moving, dancing while they're playing. It's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. That'd be great.
It's wild, yeah.
I understand you recently did a TED Talk.
Yeah, that was real fun.
What was that on? What was the subject?
The students are driving the creative machine in universities. They saw me play and they said, "Oh, we got to bring you in. And all we want you to do." I said, "What am I going to talk about? I've got so many things that I do." He said, "You have 16 minutes. I don't know if you know TED Talks. It's 16 minutes and that's it. I love that. To talk about what you do." I was like, "Oh my God, I got to make a cohesive, clear statement about it." So I was able, they gave me an opportunity to go through the arc of my family and my brother, believe it or not, my older brother is a great violin teacher and performer of our family string quartet, studied at Oberlin Conservatory. He built motorcycles in our bedroom. Okay, and where's the connection here, Mark, with that? Okay, so my brother, 3 of my brothers and I were in one room with 2 bunk beds all through high school. And my brother's motorcycles were leaking oil into the floor, but they were drag motorcycles. I don't know if you know about dragsters, right?
Yeah.
They weren't road bikes. It was this far off the ground, and the engine was the most beautiful roar. If you ever heard drag motorcycles or cars.
Yeah.
So my distortion sound of my violin was more influenced by the mufflers of my brother's motorcycle than Jimi Hendrix. But that was a critical moment to see that linkage of my family.
No kidding. Well, wow, this is...
So the TED Talk has a picture. So if you go to Markwood TED Talk, I don't know if you had a chance to see it. There's a picture of my brother with his motorcycle, and then I jumped to Leonard Bernstein right after the motorcycle. So you can imagine my brain waves, the way I function as a creative person. I really don't think of myself as a musician. I think of myself as a creative entrepreneur. And when I speak at colleges to graduates, right now, funny enough, after my teacher died at Juilliard, who refused to allow me, "You will never return. You're not allowed back here." Luckily, he passed away. And I'm now a mentor at Juilliard to graduates at Juilliard School with doctorates who are going to graduate Juilliard, right? And the first question I ask them is, raise your hand if you want to make a living.
Huh.
And they're all looking at me, "Mark, we just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on lessons, and Juilliard. What do you mean make a living?" I said, "You got to be able to make a living at playing your oboe, bassoon, or marimba somehow." And I was able to figure out a way creatively to think out of the box and as an entrepreneur. You are not a musician, really. You're an entrepreneur. You have to sell yourself to somebody who will give you money to do what you love to do.
That's a real problem in colleges everywhere, colleges and universities, where they'll coach you up, but the one thing they don't talk about is just that. It's making a living. And you may get a few classes, but it's not on the level that you need it to be in order to be a successful musician. Not even successful, making a living.
Right. And Bobby, remember, we're in the 21st century. We're not in the 18th century. And also remember, in the 1930s and 40s, from the immigration from Europe during World War II and World War I, we had orchestras on every street corner. We had the greatest orchestras, the New York Philharmonic, conducting by Mahler himself, conducted by the greatest musicians, composers, Aaron Copland. And all of a sudden, jazz came in. And didn't have much association with classical music. Jazz became a very big force with Miles Davis, John Coltrane, all these great artists, where Juilliard, Curtis, and all the great conservatories had no clue how to integrate that with classical training. So they avoided that until Wynton Marsalis came in, of course, and runs the jazz program. But the jazz program at Juilliard does have no string players. That's another story and another issue. So the educational thing, and Bobby, as we're watching the culture now, colleges and universities are still not, forget about music, technology development, AI. If you're not trained in that, oh, but I got a degree in physics in some obscure subject, you're not going to get a job.
Yeah.
The percentage of graduates from universities as opposed to graduates from high school into job training is really shifting now. And we go into colleges and high schools saying, wait a second, I know you're not going to be a musician as a career, but music is still critically important for brain development, emotional intelligence, creative intelligence. Steve Jobs played an instrument. Great leaders, Albert Einstein played the violin. So we really sell and talk about the message to the parents, administrators, and to the community that music is critical, but global styles it cannot be a narrow training. You have to be able to fiddle a little bit, because for $100, you can fiddle for 1 hour at a church or something, and you get paid for that. Yeah, but I don't fiddle. I play classical music. Well, that narrows your opportunity. So that's really what we're working on.
I'm going to ask you this because just in our brief conversation here, I know you think outside the box. What's your opinion on AI music?
Yes, and that's a very interesting topic, Bobby. And I saw an interesting example on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. An average person, this musician, played an AI-generated vocally, lyrics, musically, to a nobody person walking in the street. And they would go, what do you think of this new artist? They would listen to it, go, wow, who is this? And they say, it's AI. But I really like the song. So so the mainstream public always has not the kind of training that we have as musicians. In fact, but I listen to it, and if I was just sort of walking down the street, sort of hearing in the background, it wouldn't click to me as AI. But I think that the music industry has to be more responsible for this, number one. And equally, as you know, the music industry dropped the ball about 20 years ago. There's no music industry anymore. The royalties, making records, you're not making a living. But I will tell you that when I go see my favorite band live, I'm not seeing AI. I'm seeing a living person. So you're seeing the tour revenue is the highest it's ever been. And then you've got these tribute bands. I just saw the great band Kansas, and they no longer have original members in it. It was with Foreigner, no original members, but sold out concerts. So it's a real interesting shift that we're watching, but unfortunately, the challenge really is for the next Billy Joel, who's 15 years old, piano player, the next Robert Plant, the next Jimmy Page. They might end up working for Apple computers and not having a career in music, and it's heartbreaking. So I'm hoping that we're able to shift the focus from how to get rid of the musicians to how to integrate it and financially sustainable.
We could go down that rabbit hole and talk for hours, I'm sure. But let me ask you this, Mark. What don't people know about you that you wish they did?
That's a tough one, because I am so proud, and you're probably similar in that you're a creative thinker. We live in the clouds, and I love living in the clouds. So when I was in elementary school and junior high school, my teachers would always yell, Mark, why are you staring out the window and staring at that cloud for an hour? And I would really I have no idea. And music is constantly in my head. So I have never had a job. I've never worked for anybody. I've always been self-made. My grandfather was Henry Ford's architect in 1914 as a 25-year-old without any school education. And my father never went to school. They all were taught at some place called the library and the New York Times. They read the New York Times, and they were just incredible, brilliant people, self-made. So I'm an example of self-made. And I think that that's something that I would love to share and encourage. It's 24/7. I work 24/7. So it's not like, oh, how easy is it? Oh, it's not easy at all, especially in this day and age. So self-made, my grandfather, my father, all my uncles were self-made from the early 1900s. So I really believe that. But my brothers all work for people that they give them a paycheck. And God bless them. I love it. Thank God they get a paycheck. But my brother's orchestra, he was a principal cellist of an orchestra that were around for 50 years, just went bankrupt. That paycheck is gone. So now what? I can teach. My brother was like, well, I need to generate more energy. So I had to really create something my own. But as far as people knowing, they pretty much, when I go out, I share my entire life with the audience. I show videos like my TED Talk, showing the way creative people are valuable. Your creative intelligence, to me, are critical in success. Whatever AI, whether it's technology or science, to come up with an idea that's never been comes up is a human quality that we need to encourage schools to facilitate and to nurture. Because if we're not thinking outside the box of everything, and my heroes, as I said, are Steve Jobs and inventors. On my wall, I have a saying that's called "Non-conformity is essential for inventors and artists." End of story. And that's a critical message that we need to get our young people to not latch on. I need to train for this specific thing, for this specific job, so that I can make the specific amount of money. What if you're fired from that job within a year? What if you're out of work? What if that job is irrelevant now and you have to find something else to do? Through those years, you've been also working on your own project, your own inventions, your music. So all of these things, you're juggling so many things. That's really the secret. So I'm proud that I've figured it out.
Last question, Mark. What's the best piece of advice that maybe you learned along the way, or maybe somebody imparted to you?
Well, my parents and my father was without question. Again, they were Quakers. So simplicity, keep it simple. I'm also a very, very serious student of Stoicism, which is critical for somebody who's a musician, a creative person. We're very emotional. And when life starts to crumble, we lose a gig or we lose an opportunity. Oh my God. So Stoicism and real focused on making sure that you're in control of how you respond to the world, not trying to control stuff that you can't control, defines my life of the last 10 years. So that's a real critical thing that I have implemented, so that when I see an obstacle, I see an opportunity. Obstacles Are the Way, which is my favorite book by Ryan Holiday, as you know. And that's my Bible. Every day I read it, say, Mark, that phone call that you made yesterday, that person did not agree with your vision, it's a perfect opportunity for you to reassess it, try it again, and redo it. Not to say, woe is me. The woe is me thing doesn't work for me. So I'm really lucky. And of course, I'm married. My wife is my partner, my mother of my kid, and my lead singer of my band. So we have a whole household. And my kid plays drums with Shania Twain, and Elijah is awesome. She does pyro for Lenny Kravitz. We're about to go see her work with a Bad Omen band, which is a heavy metal band. So our whole families involved with creative intelligence.
Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. You can also learn all about the latest in music, audio, and production news, and find out about openings for my latest online classes at bobbyowsinski.com. This is Bobby Owsinski. I will see you next time.